guys, and welcome to 8 days with the Dell UltraSharp 2412M monitor. As I said in my first look, which you can see just here, it's an IPS panel which has a 1920 by 1200 resolution, and that means that it's got an aspect ratio of 16:10 rather than the 1080p, which is 16:9. Now, because it's an IPS monitor, that means that the colours are a lot deeper and a lot truer than of a TN panel, which is this one here. This is a BenQ 120Hz monitor, and right from turning this on, you could notice that the colours in this are just absolutely fantastic and outstanding compared to that of a TN panel. This is one of the best TN panels you can buy, and it is simply not a match for an IPS in terms of colour reproduction. The main applications for an IPS panel is for things like this, photo editing. So you see we have our picture in its full glory on the IPS panel on this monitor, and on this monitor there we have a grid view of all the pictures. Now if we swap that over, then straight away you will see that this looks nowhere near as good as this. Now, obviously I can't really show you this because you're watching it through your monitor, so it's not going to be the same. You won't actually be able to see what the colours are like on the monitor, but I can assure you that they're just so flat, so dull. They're both properly calibrated, they've both been set up with professional calibrating tools, and although this one looks good, it just falls flat when it comes to colours, and that this really is not at all suited to picture editing or movie editing or just generally looking at colourful things. But most of you who have either researched monitors, looked into monitors, have a nice monitor, will know that an IPS panel isn't without its flaws, and that is where the TN panel comes in. That is why people still buy TN panels. Yes, they are cheaper, but the main reason these days people will buy a TN panel is because of this is a 120Hz monitor. That means that its refresh rate is twice as quick as this one here. So this 120Hz panel is marketed as a gaming monitor, whereas this one is marketed at more of a professional's tool for editing. But the question we all want to know is this one any good for gaming? Well, the answer in short is actually very surprising. It's actually a yes. Now, as you can see here, I've got two monitors set up, and the way I figured it, I'd have this one for doing loads of editing, such as now, but whenever I wanted to play a game, I'd go back to this one, and that's what I thought I would be doing. But, interestingly enough, that's actually not what's happened at all. What's actually happened is that this more expensive monitor doesn't really get used for gaming anymore. I've done a comparison, and I'm going to quickly try and show you as much as I can about why this monitor is actually very, very good for gaming. So we're in a game. Not any game, we're in Batman Arkham City. You use a controller, but it's very, very much about reaction time and being able to get the right moves at the right time, trying to counter, and all the sort of stuff that a game might ask you to do. Now, coming from a 120Hz monitor, I'm come to attuned to maybe having that little bit extra reaction speed, and I'm used to having that responsiveness. Now straight away when you're booting up the game, you realise how much of a difference that extra few pixels makes on its resolution. It's a 1920 by 1200 monitor, and so you gain a little bit extra height, and it makes a lot of difference, believe it or not. The screen seems a lot bigger than the widescreen 1080p. Now, that combined with the amazing colours means that Arkham City has never looked better. I've never seen it look so good, so detailed, and just that alone really makes me want to play it on this monitor rather than this one. But what about the main thing? Can you actually play on it? Is it going to be any good to play with? Well, Arkham City, you'll be pleased to know, is absolutely fine. Nice and responsive, we get a constant 60 FPS, but IPS have a little bit slower reaction times and response times than a TN panel will have, which is why TN panels are marketed as gaming monitors. So this has around about a 5-6 millisecond delay from showing the picture, whereas this one only has about 2 millisecond delay. Now, it's not enough to make any difference in this game at all. although you need to have a nice reaction speed, you're using something like a controller which has quite high latency on it anyway, and it's not really high enough for you to notice when you're using a controller and playing a game. So an extra 4 milliseconds delay on the monitor doesn't really make much difference at all, and I can quite happily say that I will not be using this monitor to play Arkham City ever again. Now let's fire up a slightly different game. If there was ever a game that you needed every millisecond reaction speed, then it's going to be everyone's favourite game, Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Now, as is the same with Arkham City, the game looks a lot better and it does benefit from the extra few pixels of resolution. However, I can say with this game that there is a difference, and I will not be using this monitor to play Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Now, one of the main reasons for that is the fact that on this monitor I can get 120 FPS constant. So in conjunction, this monitor, GTX 680, means that you get a fantastically smooth experience that you just can't get with a 60Hz monitor. So that alone is a reason why I wouldn't necessarily use it. But there is definitely more noticeable lag and delay with this monitor than there is on this monitor. Now that is probably due to the fact that you're using a mouse. So if we just say go for a little bit of the old assault, I will show you what I mean. So constant 60 frames per second showing, constant 60 frames per second, and 60 frames per second, yes, it feels quite laggy, but Crysis 3 is actually a different story. Well, I got a kill. Anyway, that doesn't matter. The point is that the extra bit of lag does make a difference, and in a game that relies so heavily on reaction speed, this isn't. It's very playable. It's very playable, but it's not as nice to use as that one is. That doesn't mean to. Oh. See, look, I died. If I was playing on that monitor, I wouldn't die. No, but it just feels a bit more lag, a bit more less responsive, and I'd rather play it on that monitor. Even though it looks better on this monitor, I'd definitely rather play it on that monitor than this one. Now, there's one other sort of game that I thought will probably be a bit different on this monitor, and that is the RTS genre. Now, the RTS genre isn't necessarily all about quick reaction speeds, because it's not. But what it does do a lot of is moving the mouse, scrolling the screen around, and being able to get over a large area of map in a short space of time. Now, if you're running on a smooth monitor, then the mouse is going to be smooth, because all you're doing is using the mouse. And on a 120Hz monitor, both on the desktop and in an RTS game, you're going to be using the mouse a lot. You're going to be selecting a lot of stuff, and having a smoother refresh rate is going to make it a nicer experience. So, am I going to be playing the RTS genre on this monitor? No, absolutely not. I was wrong. Really doesn't matter very much at all. It benefits a lot from the extra resolution, really does. Age of Empires in particular, because it doesn't really support 16:9 resolution, whereas it does support 16:10. But it looks a lot nicer, it benefits from the extra resolution, and you cannot notice any extra lag at all. So I've had this monitor for 8 days. What do I think of it? Well, the only thing I can say is it's the most fantastic monitor I've ever had the pleasure to use. Sure, it's not a 2560 by 1440 resolution monitor, but it costs £200. If you're going to buy a monitor that was a high resolution than this, then you'd have to pay at least twice the money. Is it worth twice the money? I don't think it is. I think I would rather have 2 of these side by side than have one larger high resolution monitor. In the future we're moving towards 4K, monitors are going to get better, resolutions are going to get higher while prices are going to come down. So especially at this moment in time, I would not recommend that you buy anything other than this monitor. It's a fantastic monitor, pictures look absolutely fantastic, the colours are fantastic, it's nice and smooth. It's not as smooth as a 120Hz monitor, but that's just a limitation of what it is, and you can't expect that. So if you're going to buy a second monitor, then without a doubt buy the Dell UltraSharp 2412M. But there's one other sort of question, one that I will be going into depth in another similar video, and that is, which monitor do you choose from if you're going to buy a monitor for gaming? Now, you have a choice between a TN panel and an IPS panel. Now, it's not necessarily an easy choice because you gain some advantage with having this, but this is just a lot generally better to use. So it's going to take me a while to answer that question, so I'll do another video on it. But my money's on this. My money's on the Dell, but we'll be going into that in another video. Thank you for watching my review. If you're watching this review and debating whether to buy one, just go and do it. So easy to set up. Calibration wasn't really necessary. I did calibrate it, but out of the box it looked fantastic, and certainly compared to this, out of the box it doesn't really need much calibration at all. So thank you for watching this review. I will see you next time. Buy this monitor.